My name is Kate Daly. I'm Engagement Officer with Sing Ireland, and I'm going to speak about the Song Seeking project, which is a programme of Sing Ireland's for people who are living in temporary accommodation or direct provision centres based in Ireland. So we're on our third iteration, I suppose, of the project based on funding calls. So the first one, and I see the lovely Sean in the audience, did a composition for the work which ended. It was over, I think, 5 or 6 counties, I'm going to say. I wasn't involved in that one, so I'm going to speak to my facilitation in the second iteration. But it was a partnership with the Irish Refugee Council, Mary Immaculate College with Dr. Alva Kenny, as a research partner on the project, Sing Ireland, and then a number of facilitators who worked in temporary accommodation settings and direct provision centres. And it culminated in a performance in the National Concert Hall. So I'm going to share, I suppose, for us, what we want to capture really is that sense of impact in shared belonging, in being, I suppose, welcomed into a community, but also welcoming in the host community. It's reciprocal, and that sense of moving beyond the traditional notion of what a group choir can be or a group singing encounter, and into that cultural exchange. So that sense of being able to hold on to our identity when we move to a new place. And we're nearly there. I think we have to shift a few slides, but we'll be okay. An experience that I had, I moved to Switzerland and I had a 1-year-old daughter with me, 0 French, and I lived with my parents-in-law, and my mother-in-law gradually taught me French. But what she did for me was she went to a friend who was actually an Irish lady living in Switzerland, and she found a choir. It was all French speaking, and I was the youngest person, and some of the people I think were there in the choir since it began. And I was the youngest, I think, by 25 years nearly at the time. But I couldn't speak the language with them. They were all French speaking, no English. But we sang together fluently every week. And it was just that little moment's pause in kind of the chaoticness of being a new mother, being in a foreign country. And so I kind of brought that a little bit to this experience. Now, I'm not coming with all the hidden traumas that can be with moving country, whether it's been from war-torn regions or migrating in that kind of identity. And I'm doing this, I don't know why, of being a migrant person. What does that mean versus somebody who's relocating? So we kind of hold that in our groups. And one of the key things with Sing Ireland is we're trying to resource facilitators. It is challenging work. And I think any of the facilitators who are there across language, across experience, and trying to communicate with people and find ways in, there is a lot of that mirroring process. Like I loved macaron, was it? Macaron, is it? And they use that down in Ireland, it's called love. We use a lot of that gesture. And I had to, in my experience as a facilitator, use a lot of Google Translate and waiting with a phone kind of thrown out to an audience till it's translated. So a lot of those frustrations that feed in, but yet the music, once we were musicking together, all that washed away. So I'd like to not break this. Share. So this was, Sing Ireland had a launch of a strategy in April 2024, and this was a mixture of a group. So with the past 2 years now, there's a huge influx from Ukraine, and this group is from the Tipperary groups of song seeking. So Suzanne Buttimer is the facilitator, and she has 2 community choirs, one for people who are recovering from cancer, ill health, and from mental and health well-being. And the Bills, as they're called, they're all called Bill, a men's shed group, and then people who were coming in quite intergenerational groups. So they sang at the launch of Sing Ireland's new strategy. So it's a transformative initiative and very important, I suppose, to us, and particularly as facilitators, preserving that connection to wherever we imagine home to be and our kind of innate and held cultures, but yet fostering new relationships, and that whole idea of trying to integrate in a reciprocal way both communities and bringing that sense of belonging through cultural exchange. We speak all the time about the mental health, physical health benefits and social health benefits and bringing about well-being for participants, but also creating strong opportunities for integration. So I'll speak quickly to one of the participants, Marina, who was based in Tipperary. She is an amazing piano teacher and pianist, performer, and she started to work with Suzanne's music school. And it did come down to her as well having excellent English to do that, but she also collaborated on a lot of the song-seeking projects. And when we'd come together, so I worked in the second iteration, which was funded by Rethink Ireland in their Munster Fund in 2022. And what we did, I worked in Clare, where I'm from, in 2 locations, and Suzanne had 2 locations in Tipperary, and we brought them together at Limerick Sings Festival for kind of a big shindig. And a lot of it was, rather than this idea of working towards a performance, was working towards them sharing songs, but also us doing a bit of workshopping, so that kind of, again, exchange and highlighting that. Sources of emotional support, and again, that platform for cultural expression, and continuously evaluated. So yes, that's something that we are very focused on in Sing Ireland, is building in research and into that kind of qualitative, what is the impact? Why bother? You know, what is the purpose of this, apart from just delivering another project? So this is from the Limerick Sings. Suzanne on piano, myself, and you can see Suzanne uses great little tools, but while she was playing we did forward and back, and just having, I suppose, that sense of play and fun and lifting the weight of the experience. Because Alva Kenny, who is the research partner, she said, and it rings true in my ears all the time, it's not a priority for people, even though we know the benefits that are happening, because there's so much going on in the background. Like, people arrived at a group and they had lost somebody at home. They still came to singing that evening to just kind of have that release and relief. So yeah, they're the 3 different funding streams. At the moment, we're working with individual councils. So we've branched out into 2 centres now in Limerick, one with children and one in Knockallasheen, sorry, that's Clare side. And then in the new, I suppose, model or iteration, we're looking at that whole need for co-facilitation. So I've done a lot of facilitation solo, and there's a need for the musical backdrop on keys or guitar to kind of set almost the mood and the space to be welcoming and inviting in, and not just for the group singing. I wouldn't call myself in any way a keyboard player. And also that in these 2 locations we had 2 facilitators where one of them had multiple languages. Now that is, I mean, a glorious thing to have when it's available, but it kind of took away some of those barriers to creating music together. So I'm going to share, I don't know what I'm going to share here. Oh, this was a meetup in Glore in Ennis in County Clare between the 2 groups. So we brought them together in Limerick, and then they all met up again in Glore, and then we all met up down in Tip, and it was this kind of finding each other again each time, sharing songs, but with each time they wanted to bring something to the next thing. Like, having seen people perform or put things together, they then wanted to do their own performance of that nature.
Цей досвід сьогодні просто чудовий. Нам дуже приємно бути разом, нам дуже приємно співати разом. Цікаво було грати на барабанах. Це взагалі неймовірно круто, і ми дуже вдячні за цю можливість. Це дуже хороший досвід, і його нам сильно не вистачало. І музика, танці, і спів разом – це хороша можливість трішки відпочити від думок про все те неприємне, що оточує, і просто насолоджуватись музикою, насолоджуватися життям. Нам дуже хочеться, щоб це продовжувалося, і ми з задоволенням будемо брати участь надалі.
Я сам особисто співак за покликанням. Я не професійний співак, але за покликанням це моя душа. І коли я потрапляю в таку атмосферу, я живу, я розквітаю. Моє покликання – це співати. Це однозначно. Це моя місія – давати людям позитивні емоції. І коли потрапляю в таку атмосферу, то я живу, якось народжуюсь, надихаюсь. І це дуже класно, що ви робите такі проекти. І велике вдяка, я це ніколи не забуду. Цю доброту, те, що нам дала Ірландія, це не описати ніякими словами. І цей проєкт особисто дуже класний, який дає можливість об'єднатися людям і спілкуватися, і проявляти себе, і якось давати світу знати про себе.
Україна, серце завжди не вистачає до моря, на балкону світ солов'я, там, де вирізя.
Ой, свято на душі, свято на душі, емоції, не можу передати. Де я живу, в готелі, хостел там навіть, чуть-чуть адаптируюся, на українському, адаптируюся, і душою віддихаю душею. Плюс добрі ірландці, і супер.
Я потім скажу, що я би хотіла цьому, тому що я можу сказати, що я сама брала активну участь, я сама грала, співала, ходила на всі заняття. І ми бачимо, що все більше і більше людей долучається до цього проєкту, всім подобається, всі хочуть. Бо найскладніші часи треба вміти дарувати людям емоції. Я можу навіть тут і сказати, що в найскладніші часи потрібно все-таки навчитися посміхатися, потрібно вчитися чи дарувати людям емоції. Музика і спів дуже велике значення мають у нашій українській культурі. У нас багато українських фольклорних пісень, музики, люди хочуть і вміють танцювати, співати, народних пісень багато.
А ми тую червону калину візьмемо.
So I'm going to share just a couple of small videos as well. So that was in 4 centres really that brought together a big contingent of the Ukrainian community, and that presented its own challenge, I suppose, of having a community within a community within a community. But there is another centre in Ennis that we worked in where people have been living in direct provision in a hostel for decades, children growing up in Ireland in hostel accommodation and that. But I think I just love sharing his story. Ong is now a full Irish citizen, having been through the whole process, and came back to the centre. I met him in a choir in the first centre he was in. After the pandemic, met him again. Somebody had said, oh, this guy Ong from Bangladesh, mad for singing. He'll come, I'd say, when you're down in the centre. And he appeared, and I hadn't seen him in like 3 years. Anyways, Ong shared, and with Sushi, a bit of his song from home. So part of our group sessions became him trying to encourage more. It was an all-male centre, encourage more of the guys to come down. And what we realised, and it was due to a shortage of facilitators, male facilitators specifically for this type of work, that me being a woman facilitator in the centre kind of posed its own barrier. And we had that in the centres in Limerick, in Knocklashin. I keep thinking it's Limerick, it's Clare. But having a male co-facilitator in the space kind of broke down that barrier. So we're learning with each iteration, and I suppose that's one of the key things that we're trying to do. So we create this Padlet resource with song files, with videos. Some work, some don't. It depends on the setting, but I think it's about giving things a go. We have the research report and then Marina's story. So we build that in all the time when we're talking about the programs, in the hopes of receiving more funding as well, of the impact with them. I might just share this presentation with anyone who would like it, rather than, because I know there's a few more after this. And that's from our Christmas gathering down in Manila. I just love it. Santi came and, or Mrs. Claus came, read a story, gave them all presents, and they were just, yeah, so invested. It was fab. Okay, that's it.